Welcome entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to the sixth delivery of our class called Porter's 5 Forces. And this is corresponding to our course series, Traditional Marketing and its application on the online marketing world. And today we're going to be talking about Porter's 5 Forces. And these are the 5 forces that we must compete when we are on, we must compete against as we're doing business. So the 5 considerations that we need to do are these 5 different forces, such as the new competitors. The new competitors are those that are coming into the market, okay? Negotiation power from suppliers, the power we have over our customers, product substitution or alternative products, and traditional competition, okay? So it is very important for us to understand this so we can leverage our negotiation opportunities with each one of these forces. So the first force related to new competitors is the threat of new entry. The threat of new entry. And what this is how hard or difficult it is for new businesses to get into the same industry or the same space that we are doing business with. And how hard it is for them to get in, or how easy it is to get in. So every industry has good returns. Every industry that has good returns will be attractive. Okay, so if there's a particular industry that the returns are high, the returns are good, that generates a lot of business and that has a lot of opportunities, it's just a natural assumption, and the logic will tell us that those industries will be very attractive for others to get and do business with. For example, if you're setting up a new product or service and you have a successful product or service, whatever that is in a particular industry, well, chances are that others will try to copy you. Okay, so you have to measure up the risk and return on this. So if it's a low risk, then there's a potential for low return, and vice versa. So if it's a high risk investment or high risk business, then the potential for high returns will be also corresponding and directly associated. So there will be a direct relationship between risk and return. Okay, so low levels of uncertainty or risk are associated with low potential returns, whereas high levels of uncertainty or risk are associated with high potential returns. So according to the risk-return trade-off, invested money can render higher profits only if the investor is willing to accept the possibility of losses. Okay, so one more time. According to the risk-return trade-off, invested money can render higher profits only if the investor is willing to accept the possibilities of losses. Okay, now there is always also an entry barrier. You know, if that industry that you're trying to participate or that you're already in, it has a low entry barrier. For example, the pharmaceutical industry needs a big economic muscle. Okay, if it will be easy for anybody to just have get into the pharmaceutical space, then we'll see more than the actual participants that they're into that industry. If it has a low entry barrier, then you're gonna see more competition, which it might saturate the market. It might drive some of the profits down, and competition will be a lot more. Develop intangible assets. Okay, so if you have the problem where there's a low entry barrier, or where it's an industry that has good returns and is very attractive for others to participate and to get into that economical space, then what you need to do is you need to develop intangible assets, and in this case is to have a proprietary technology or have special licenses or patents where others can't copy you, or that it will take a while for them to get to be able to do the same thing as you do. For example, if you have a proprietary technology for a particular business, whether it's a product or whether it's a service, this will be a barrier of entry for others that are trying to do the same thing. Okay, so for instance, if you discover a new way to fold a box, or discover a new technology to implement into like packaging material, okay, in So let's just call this example. I saw it once where these entrepreneurs had developed a way to fold the box or unfold the box and get it ready for packing in like 2 seconds. All they have to do is just kind of open the box and it was all ready to go. And it was just so much faster and easier for customers that will need to be moving and packing to use that technology and to develop into that kind of box, that it was just so much easier than using the conventional boxes that they had to pick up at the mail office or the career office. And just having a specific patent that forbids other businesses, at least for a certain amount of time, to use the same technology that you are using because it's a proprietary technology, then it will make it harder for them because they won't be able to use the same technology. So therefore, there will be a higher barrier of entry because they will need to replicate that or maybe come up with another technology and invest into that, which will cost them time and money, as you are already in business and like reaping the benefits of what you have invested in. The next concept we need to talk about here for the threat of new entries is the critical mass. So the smallest amount of users or users generated content that is required for growth to occur. Okay, so critical mass is a concept. For a threat of a new entry is that what is the smallest amount of users or user generated content that is required for growth to occur. So for example, if you have a proprietary technology or a patent, it will be a barrier of entry. But for instance, if you have a new social network, okay, and you don't have the critical mass, you don't have the smallest amount of users that you need in order for your product to grow, and all of a sudden for it to take off and compete with the big with the already established companies with the similar products, then you're gonna lack that, and that's gonna be a barrier of entry for you. So for instance, if you come up with a new Facebook, the new Twitter, or the new YouTube, it's not gonna be as easy for people to move from that space. Let's say there's like how many millions of views every day on YouTube and how many hundreds of thousands of videos that are uploaded every day. How can you compete against that? You don't have that critical mass, but they do. They're staying on top of the curve, and they're keeping up with technology. People are already there, so it makes it harder for people to move from that space to create another new account at another social network. And you will see that there are some businesses, let's say such as Google, that saw on YouTube an opportunity to acquire that. The same thing happened with Twitter, where they saw that Periscope, it was a growing platform as well for like video sharing and like for social networking through video, and they acquired because they already had the critical mass, and in this case Twitter had the economical muscle to acquire a company that had the critical mass already into it, and Periscope was a great example. The same thing that it was YouTube for Google. They saw an opportunity, they have the economical muscle, and YouTube had already this critical mass. So if you have a critical mass, that's a barrier of entry for your competition, but if you don't, then that's a barrier for you to get into that space. So that's the first threat of new entry. The second one of the Porter's 5 forces is supplier power, and this is one of those things that we need to run against as we're in business. And the negotiation power from the suppliers, as we can talk a little bit about it, is to the capacity that the supplier has for a company to put a company under pressure. So if the supplier is so much bigger than you and you depend so much on the supplier, guess who's going to control who? Okay, so if your supplier controls your access to raw material for your key products, then who has the last word on the pricing? Who controls the market? Who controls the pricing and the terms and the conditions? Is it going to be your supplier or you? So that's why it is important that for certain your critical products and your critical aspects of your business, that you have to try to not to have one supplier that controls it all, So you have more negotiation power as far as the terms, the conditions, the pricing. What if your supplier decides to raise your cost on your raw materials, and you have no way on saying no, because if they just don't supply to you because they they own a big market share from that industry, and they don't deliver to you, and there's no other alternatives in that market, then what are you gonna do? Are you gonna be able to just survive, or are you gonna be forced to close your doors, stop production, or just pretty much just follow whatever your supplier wants you to do? Okay, so this is the capacity to negotiate with your suppliers, and try to keep that balance of power between who has the control and who controls the negotiation process, the supplier or you. And this is one of those things that many businesses really have to face. They have to, in many cases, have a good relationship with their vendors and their suppliers to be able to find through the negotiation process alternatives that are going to create a win-win, so much for your business the same way as it does for your supplier. So it has to be an act of balance, and then you have to try, if you see that there's so much power into one supplier, maybe they're controlling 60-70% of your products. Maybe you're working with a warehouse that pretty much runs every single aspect of your business from your products, and all of a sudden they have a shutdown on their plant, or they get hacked, and all of a sudden they're not producing anything, and it takes a little while for them to fulfill the orders. In the meantime, if you run out of product, who do you go to? So then again, you have to balance this and make sure that you have a good understanding of that relationship with your suppliers and who you're buying from. The next aspect is the importance of the product. For example, the classical example is the pop industry or the soda industry. Whether it's Pepsi or Coke in the supermarket, who has the negotiation power on if you are a supermarket and you have to negotiate with Pepsi or with Coke? Well, there are certain markets where people, there's just a number of stores where you are probably the bigger player there in that area, and there's no other suppliers of Pepsi. Okay, and let's say Pepsi demands that they want to have a specific space within your retail shelf, and at the eye level, in a specific number of SKUs, and different number of facings, etc. And you might not agree with that, but if Pepsi pulls out, then your customers are going to go somewhere else, because they're looking for, they expect to find certain items that those suppliers only carry. And also that gives an ability for them to determine where they will be placed. And now it doesn't mean they're going to abuse of that power, but it means that you need to always be aware of what's going on and who's controlling the relationship, to again be able to negotiate what's best for both parties. And that takes a lot of skills, a lot of experience, and a lot of practice. And if you're not paying attention, well, you could be missing out on opportunities as well to build, good relationship with your suppliers and actually help them grow your business. Help them grow your business as you grow theirs as well. The oligopoly, oligopoly, basically is when there's a small number of suppliers who controls the negotiation. Okay, if there is a small number of suppliers, and that means that there isn't a lot of choices for you to buy from, who controls the negotiation process again? Okay, so you have to pay attention in what kind of market you are in that industry, and what does the market looks like for all those suppliers as well. Then we're talking about exclusivity agreements, where you can possibly negotiate better terms for these agreements in exchange, for instance, for space in your store, or for if you're talking about online marketing, for specific more like higher prominent banners that you can trade with particular vendors, so then they feature their products better, or they can be more included on the suggested items or suggested item of the week, or products that we suggest, anyways, it could be a way to also try to get exclusivity agreements with your suppliers and negotiate products or territories or inventory that it will be only exclusive to you, so customers won't be able to find it anywhere else. So like if you build a good relationship with your suppliers, again, you will be able to capture specific items and a specific market that they will need to come to you. And nowadays the world is so global that you're not going to be able to really force anybody to just do business with you and nobody else, unless you make such a specific product or very advanced proprietary technology product. But as in a general basis, I would like to say that the reason that you have to have a good relationship with your vendors and offer a good alternative to your customers is that you always have a good, nice assortment, that you have products that are fresh, that are relevant, that you have services that actually are taking care of the customer's problem in a timely manner, that you charge prices that are fair to allow you to thrive as a business, but also to let people enjoy and want them to come back with you. Like you don't want to run into a situation where you control the market also for your customers and they don't have nowhere else to go, and they keep buying from you because there's no other alternative that is closer to you. But believe me that the moment that there is, they're just going to abandon you. They're not going to have any loyalty because customers are smart and they will know if you are not playing honest with you and playing fair and square. They will know if you take advantage of them, and maybe they will be forced to buy from you, and they will do for a while until they find another alternative. So that's not good business. I don't recommend that. But I do recommend that you work with your suppliers so you can create better agreements, whether they're exclusivity agreements or any terms that are good for the supplier, that are good for you, but also for your customers. So it's like a triad right there. Volume discounts, better negotiation terms. Maybe you can get better pricing as well if you buy in volume. So it all depends on your skills of negotiation, and those negotiation skills will help determine, what is that you can actually get, and maybe just be creative and don't only just ask for what you've been doing in the past. Maybe just try to be a little bit, again, creative, and then maybe have different propositions for your vendors that, not that you take advantage of them, but at the same time that you can offer some creative ways to create more opportunities for them and for you. Okay, whether it's through like an additional sale, maybe a new space, a new promotion that you can create, or cross promoting products, or maybe featuring in a specific advertising pieces on your website or on social media, or do different things that will also give them some credit for what they do, so that way customers return to you as they find that you are actually doing good business with everybody, and then you treat with respect and fairly everybody else as well. Drop shipping as well. Many suppliers have power because they have lots of distributors, and who has the the negotiation power there and the drop shipping? Well, it usually is the drop shipper. But again, it's whatever is negotiated between the supplier and you. And even if you happen to be the supplier, well, you have to realize that even if you control a little more the negotiation, you have to be fair and square with your wholesale customer or with your distributor, or whoever, depending on which side of the equation you're sitting. What I always propose is to do good business, to be fair, to be responsible, and to create situations where everybody wins. If you can create a win-win-win situation where the supplier wins, where you win, and then the retailer wins, and the customer wins, you're doing like a win-win-win-win situation. How can you be that? Everybody's happy, everybody keeps doing business, and people likes to continue doing business with those that they feel treated right, with those that they're familiar with, but they also know that they're honest with them. Buyer power, that's the third of the 5 forces from Porter's. And the buyer power is, where's the power at? Is it in the consumer's hand now, or is it you? Well, let's talk about the definition for it. The buyer power, simply put, it will be, well, are your customers deciding your destiny? Are they setting the conditions of how they're buying, when they're buying? And now is a time when there's so many options out there, online and on the retail physical space, and the whether services that can be consumed through like local agencies. At the same time, many services that can be consumed and accessed via the internet, that the buyer has a lot more power than they have in the past, because there's more options, there are more alternatives. They don't not only have to deal with like their own local areas, but they can also go and buy from suppliers or vendors that are way beyond their local area. They can buy from New York and maybe they're on Los Angeles, or maybe they're on Washington State and maybe they just happen to live in Florida. So business it has completely changed, and the online digital world has created those opportunities, which are good. They're not bad, because if you happen to be the seller for your customers, well, if you do things right, if you create a good compelling story and tell your story right, and you have a product that is actually competitive, that is solve people's real problems, and that is priced right, and you have a good service and provide a good experience, how can you win? If you do things right and you keep doing your homework all the time, then that is gonna tilt, the power is gonna tilt a little bit to your favor, because buyers will want to set their own conditions, but at the same time they'll know that they can find everybody like they can find you, okay? And maybe you are willing to do more things that your competition can do. You gotta think outside the box, okay? And you gotta think from the other side, and that's key, because from the buyer's perspective, well, are you doing like a business to business, or are you doing business to consumer? Okay, so if you're doing business to business, well, again, who's your customer? If it's a distributor and you're a wholesaler, are you delivering services for agencies that are actually selling your services and billing third parties? Who's doing what? So you need to think from the other side and think like they think, so you can see how you can actually leverage the situation in a way that you can actually create the opportunity again for them to win and for them to want to do business with you, okay? But you need to be aware that the buyer power sometimes is just gonna be on the hands of the buyers or the consumers, depending on whether we're doing a B2B business or whether we're a B2C business. And there might not be a whole lot that we could do about that, other than just realize and provide a good, fair business opportunity for everybody that we're working with. Quantities purchased. That also might be another examples of buyer power, because maybe like in the past you could require people to buy, let's say 5 items to get a particular price, and that's still some sort of a common practice in many retail businesses, but a lot of customers don't want that. Maybe a lot of customers don't need that. Maybe they are setting for like a business to B2C business model. Maybe your customers are Asian and maybe they're like empty nesters and they don't need to buy a whole gallon of milk. Maybe they just want like a quart size. Maybe they want like a half-liter bottle of milk, or maybe they just don't need to buy a whole pie. They want a slice of pie. Or maybe they don't need to buy a whole steak. Maybe they just need to buy like a smaller piece, or maybe like, I don't know, like little dice, pieces of meat or whatever, because maybe they're retired now and there's either, a couple, or maybe they just live by themselves. So quantities purchased, like the buyer, it will determine what is that the needs are, and you need to listen to those needs and respond accordingly. The fourth force of porters is a threat of substitution, and here we just need to really pay attention and see what products are competing with our products, or what services are competing with ours. So basically, who's our competition, and not only that they're doing the same thing, but also who is doing something that people might go instead of of choosing us. So for instance, if we are looking at items that might be the same. So like in the picture, if we look at sports versus church. Like if you're doing sports, well, the competition might be, well, like for basketball, it might be football, or maybe soccer, or it might be volleyball. Okay, but that's not the only competition. So let's say if it happens to be that you're trying to have sports on Wednesday at night from 5 to 7, but kids have to go to church every Wednesday for like a whole year, or maybe 2 years, between, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. Well, who's your competition? There's a threat of substitution, because people will probably want at that point have their kids go to church and do whatever they need to do there. And that might be kind of stealing some customers from you. If you are, a training facility, or you have, you rent space on a dome or in a gym for people to come in and, practice their sports. The same thing for like a retail products. We're talking about like, butter and margarine. That's a very classical example, but we have to see that people also can substitute margarine or butter by not only by buying margarine or a different brand of butter, but they can also buy spreads, or they can buy yam, or maybe they can just decide to put peanut butter, or maybe they just might decide to to try something different, new in the market. Or like if it's a peanut butter, a competition for a brand, it might be another one, but also it might be like the new hazelnut spreads. And so, if you're in the services business, well, a substitution, it can be, well, like somebody else that is doing the same thing. Maybe your substitution, it might be somebody that is giving information for free when you're charging for just about the same. Maybe your substitution, it might be like a new technology that might help people navigate through some questions and answers and get to a form, instead of having to go to a lawyer to obtain a form that will do the same. Okay, so the substitution is also a threat that you need to face as you're doing business. Usability, it's also another way to kind of battle a little bit the threat of substitution, because if you make your products more usable, than others, that way you will be able to capture an audience that they will know that yours is easier to use and is better, and it's more user friendly, that solves their problems and is easy to do, that they might not go somewhere else. But if they find another product that is more usable than yours, well, then I guess you're out of luck, right? You need to stay competitive all the time. Now, the differentiation, that's another way of trying to battle a little bit the threat of substitution, if you try to be unique. But the reality is that there are ways that people will be substituting your brand by another one, or your product by another one, or your service by another one, and you just kind of need to be prepared for that, and try to be open, and always getting constant feedback from your clients, from your customers, knowing what kind of things they're thinking, what are their concerns, what are their problems, what are their challenges, and how you can kind of fit in there to be able to stay on top of that. And the fifth force from forces is a competitive rivalry. Okay, and what this is well, if you think, we can say that the competitive rivalry is, well, how can you be different from everybody else? Okay, that's the normal competition, the everyday competition we have every day with everybody else that is doing the same things that we are. Okay, whether it's educating other people, or whether it is opening a new bakery, or a new retail shop store, or maybe another we could say probably a new company that is developing software, or creating new apps, or repairing computers. So whatever the case might be, we need to be prepared. And I like to use the example here of the the purple cow, because the purple cow is a clear example where when you're going down the road and you see all these brown and black and white cows, and all of a sudden you see a purple one, well, that will really draw your attention, because at the moment you're on the highway, you're going so fast, you see just about the same, that you see a lot of cows that they look just about the same, although they're not the same. That doesn't pique your interest. But if you see something different, then that really is, it makes you stop, it makes you turn your head for a little bit, and thus you need to try to be different from your competition. You need to be doing a good job at branding your business, which is important for you to do with all these online marketing tools and techniques, and being on the spaces where you need to be, such as the social networks. If you need to be on Instagram, or maybe it's time to move to a Snapchat, or any of that. You need to keep coming up with ideas, and you need to be creative once and again. You just never get tired of that, because the moment you do, there will be somebody that will be trying to take that space, or that sale from you, or that market share from you, or steal that customer from you. And I don't really believe that others steal customers from you. I see it more as you let your customers go. You abandon your customer, so your customer feels like they have to go somewhere else because you stop caring for them. So it is important that even as you grow, that you have a system in place to continue building and nurturing those relationships that you have already created with your customers. And the moment you don't, then you're going to start suffering. And we talked about that in a couple classes before. So if you haven't seen that one, I would invite you to go back and make sure that you don't miss any of the previous classes from this 10-class series for the traditional marketing applied to online marketing. But at the same time, it's important that you keep adding value to your products and services. And the moment that you do, you're going to see that you keep your audience interested, that you that they realize that you're making efforts to stay current with the technological challenges, with the generational challenges, and customers are smart, and they are appreciative of the efforts, as long as they're honest, and as long as you get results and deliver good products and services. But just keep finding ways to add value to your products and services to keep you at different from the competition. Again, the intangibles. I'm going to say this once and again, because if you happen to produce, let's say, a granola bar, then there's going to be a million granola bars out there. And although you will say, well, but mine is different because mine has this ingredient, or mine has this secret recipe, or mine is better because it has more, proteins and less fat, less sugar. Well, believe me, there's going to be another 3 zillion bars that will be claiming that they do something similar to you. So what you need to really focus times when you can have products that are easily replicated or copied from others, because that only is going to take time, right? Nobody's going to discover something new. It's very rare. That you have to develop your intangibles. And in this case, like we discussed, our patents, our own products, and our own processes that that we continue improving over and over, and our service, the experience. That's so hard to replicate. If you have a good culture in your organization, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10 people, 20 people, the challenge will be bigger as you grow. But if you have a good company culture, and then you also deliver a great experience for your customers all across, every time they touch your brand, every time they see your brand, and every time they experience your brand, then you're gonna have an edge versus everybody else, and that will give you a little unfair advantage over your competition. Well, we now have learned about Porter's 5 forces. This is explained in a very, very simple way to help you understand the things you need to consider if you're already doing business, or if you're planning to enter a specific industry. Obviously, the Porter's 5 forces, it can be studied in a whole semester in the school, and we're not going to be able to tell it all in less than an hour. But the important part here, and the practical part, is that you need to understand there are these 5 forces that you are dealing against every single time. And when I say against, I don't mean that they're bad, but they're out there, and you need to be aware, and you need to be responsible. Whether it's you're dealing with the threat of new entrants into that market for that industry, whether you're dealing with your supplier power and trying to see who controls the negotiation process, same as your buyer power and your customers that in many cases they're trying to dictate and telling you how you're selling your products and your services and whatnot. And the same way as with the threat of substitutions, where the threat of substitutions we discussed and said that others are actually coming up with new stuff, and generations are changing all the time, and their likes and dislikes are changing, and their patterns and behaviors are completely changing from before. And as your competitive rivalry goes, this is the competition. We're all here to fight for space and to do the things that we love. So you don't have to fear about that. You just have to focus on your intangibles and create experiences that are hard to replicate for anybody else. Well, once again, we appreciate that you are here, being part of this sixth class of Porter's 5 Forces of this traditional marketing class that we're doing for you, and we appreciate that you're looking to improve your skills. So we invite you to join our community. If you haven't done so, I want you to invite you today to go to our website, jlbmedia.com, and then sign up to our newsletter, and then get access to more resources for free and opportunities for you to connect with our community that we're building and growing. And we hope that you're part of this, because we can learn so much from each other and actually find new possibilities and partnerships to keep doing things that we love and to live the kind of life that we enjoy living. Again, my name is Juan LLerena. Feel free to drop us a comment or suggestion if you go to our website and fill out the comment form. That's probably the best way to contact us. My name is Juan LLerena again. I am a marketing consultant, engagement and motivational speaker, and an entrepreneur. See you in the next class. Thank you.